Narcissists rarely acknowledge what they've lost until confronted with the inadequacy of their current emotional providers. They experience moments of clarity when comparing present situations with past relationships, particularly those where genuine devotion was abundant. Consider how these individuals process the realization that they've discarded someone irreplaceable, someone who offered authentic connection, unwavering support, and limitless patience. This revelation doesn't arrive as dramatic epiphany, but rather surfaces during quiet moments when their present circumstances fail to fulfill their insatiable emotional requirements. The narcissist's mind occasionally wanders backward through time, recognizing the exceptional quality of affection they carelessly discarded. Though fleeting, these moments of awareness represent rare instances of genuine self-reflection within their otherwise self-absorbed existence. Those who've survived narcissistic relationships undergo profound transformation, developing specialized knowledge about human behavior that functions as psychological armor. This understanding doesn't emerge immediately, but develops gradually through careful study, personal reflection, and emotional healing. The journey from confusion to clarity involves recognizing patterns, identifying manipulation tactics, and accepting painful truths about relationship dynamics. This educational process transforms victims into specialists, capable of detecting warning signs that once remained invisible. Your presence in this healing community demonstrates exceptional courage, willingness to explore uncomfortable realities, rather than retreating into comfortable denial. This represents significant personal growth, transitioning from vulnerable innocence to informed awareness without sacrificing compassion or authenticity. Narcissists exploit kindness systematically, viewing generosity as weakness rather than strength. They identify empathetic individuals, recognizing their inclination toward understanding and forgiveness as exploitable resources. The relationship's early stages feature calculated charm designed to establish dependency, with the narcissist studying responses carefully to determine how much they might extract emotionally, financially, and psychologically. Their predatory assessment focuses not on mutual growth but strategic advantage, evaluating potential victims based on accessibility rather than compatibility. This explains their preference for compassionate personalities, not because they appreciate these qualities, but because such traits facilitate exploitation. Their relationship approach resembles resource extraction rather than partnership building, aiming to maximize benefits while minimizing investment. The transformation from devoted partner to psychological servant happens gradually, progressing through almost imperceptible stages that normalize abnormal behaviors. Initially, reasonable requests evolve into excessive demands, with boundaries systematically dismantled through persistent challenges. Resistance triggers intensified manipulation, perhaps guilt induction, emotional outbursts, or withdrawal of affection, creating psychological conditions where compliance seems the only viable option for maintaining relationship stability. This incremental approach prevents recognition of the developing imbalance, with each concession establishing precedent for further encroachment. Eventually, the relationship structure completely inverts, with your priorities entirely subordinated to theirs while maintaining the illusion of partnership. This restructuring happens so methodically that many recognize it only retrospectively, during healing stages when comparing their relationship dynamics with healthy interaction patterns. The narcissist's emotional landscape fundamentally differs from empathetic individuals, featuring profound emptiness requiring constant external validation. Their interior experience resembles insatiable hunger, impervious to satisfaction, creating perpetual seeking behavior untethered from genuine connection. This explains their restless pursuit of admiration, attention, and accommodation, attempting to fill psychological voids through external sources. Their relentless demands stem not from deliberate malice, but fundamental inability to generate internal stability. Understanding this emptiness provides crucial insight into their behavior patterns without excusing their destructive impact. Their pursuit of supply continues indefinitely because obtaining it provides only temporary relief from chronic psychological emptiness. This fundamental difference explains why strategies effective in normal relationships fail consistently with narcissistic personalities. They simply process emotional information through entirely different mechanisms. Time represents our most precious resource, irreplaceable and continuously diminishing regardless of how we allocate it. Relationships with narcissistic individuals invariably consume disproportionate amounts of this finite commodity, requiring constant attentiveness to their fluctuating needs while providing minimal reciprocal investment. The narcissist creates endless crises, manufactured conflicts, and emotional emergencies designed to monopolize attention and establish centrality within your existence. Your schedule, priorities, and energy become increasingly organized around their requirements, creating progressive isolation from other relationships and personal interests. This time, misallocation represents significant opportunity cost, energy diverted from authentic connections, personal growth, and meaningful pursuits. Recovery involves reclaiming this resource, redistributing attention toward relationships offering mutual enrichment rather than one-sided extraction. Narcissistic relationships fundamentally reshape personal identity, gradually replacing authentic self-expression with carefully calibrated responses designed to minimize conflict. This adaptation happens incrementally as you discover which aspects of yourself trigger negative reactions, learning to suppress these elements to maintain relational stability. The process resembles systematic personality pruning, with genuine characteristics gradually removed when they conflict with narcissistic expectations. This identity erosion progresses from modest behavioral adjustments to comprehensive self-censorship, ultimately creating profound disconnection from authentic feelings, perspectives, and needs. Recovery requires rediscovering these suppressed aspects, reconnecting with preferences and viewpoints abandoned during the relationship. This reclamation process often feels both unfamiliar and liberating, combining discomfort of novelty with profound relief of authentic self-expression. The triangulation tactic represents among the most psychologically damaging manipulation strategies, creating artificial competition that destabilizes emotional security. This approach introduces third parties, sometimes real, sometimes fabricated, as relationship competitors, establishing comparative framework where affection becomes conditional rather than reliable. The narcissist carefully describes others' supposed superiority, highlighting qualities you supposedly lack while emphasizing how these individuals better satisfy their needs. This manufactured comparison creates persistent anxiety and determination to prove worthiness through increased accommodation. The strategy effectively transforms love from secure attachment into perpetual performance, creating psychological conditions where exploitation becomes virtually inevitable. Recognizing this pattern represents a crucial healing step, understanding that genuine relationships provide security rather than constant evaluation. The education acquired through narcissistic relationship recovery provides uniquely valuable insight applicable across numerous life contexts. This knowledge fundamentally alters perception, creating heightened awareness of interpersonal dynamics that remains permanently activated. While initially overwhelming, this perceptual shift eventually becomes integrated psychological asset, allowing rapid assessment of interaction patterns that previously remained invisible. This represents psychological evolution rather than hypervigilance, developing enhanced understanding of human behavior that protects without isolating. This awareness enables establishing healthier boundaries, recognizing inauthentic communication, and making more informed relationship choices. The knowledge gained through suffering transforms into protective wisdom, benefiting not only yourself but potentially others navigating similar circumstances. Narcissists maintain highly selective memory regarding relationships, reconstructing narratives to support their preferred self-image regardless of factual accuracy. During rare moments of clarity, they briefly glimpse the exceptional quality of connection they destroyed, recognizing the uniqueness of someone who offered genuine affection without manipulation or hidden agenda. These fleeting realizations quickly submerge beneath defensive psychological layers, but periodically resurface during quiet moments when current supply arrangements fail to provide adequate validation. The narcissist experiences these realizations not as opportunities for growth, but painful reminders of their fundamental inability to maintain authentic connections. Their memory simultaneously holds contradictory versions, both dismissing your significance and recognizing your irreplaceability, depending which narrative better serves their immediate emotional needs. The healing journey following narcissistic relationships proceeds non-linearly, featuring progress interspersed with temporary regression as various aspects of the experience process at different rates. Initial stages often focus on intellectual understanding, researching patterns, identifying specific manipulation tactics, and developing vocabulary describing previously inexplicable experiences. This cognitive framework provides essential foundation for emotional processing, creating structure for examining painful memories while maintaining psychological distance that prevents overwhelming activation. As intellectual understanding develops, emotional integration follows gradually, transforming abstract concepts into deeply personalized insight. This healing sequence explains why recovery seems inconsistent. Intellectual clarity might develop rapidly while emotional healing requires extended time, creating temporary disconnection between what you know and what you feel. Narcissistic relationship patterns feature remarkably consistent structure, regardless of specific individuals involved, progressing through identifiable phases with predictable manipulation tactics. The relationship typically begins with excessive admiration and intense connection, creating template for what seems achievable while establishing emotional dependency. This idealization phase transitions gradually into devaluation, introducing criticism, comparison, and inconsistent affection that creates psychological uncertainty. This deliberate instability produces powerful bonding through trauma, combining intermittent reinforcement with attachment activation that creates dependency despite deteriorating treatment. Understanding this universal pattern helps survivors recognize their experience within broader context, transforming isolated suffering into recognized phenomenon with established recovery pathways. This contextualization reduces shame and isolation while providing roadmap toward healing. The transformation from victim to survivor requires deliberately reclaiming personal autonomy surrendered during the relationship. This reclamation process begins with small independent decisions gradually expanding into larger life choices made without external validation. Initial autonomy often feels uncomfortable, triggering anxiety conditioned through previous punishment of independent thinking. This discomfort represents expected healing stage rather than legitimate warning, requiring persistent practice despite emotional resistance. Each autonomous choice strengthens decision-making confidence, gradually replacing external validation with internal guidance system. This restoration of personal authority extends beyond practical decisions into emotional sovereignty, reclaiming right to feelings without justification or apology. This represents fundamental transition from externally regulated existence to self-directed living, establishing foundation for authentic relationships built on mutual respect rather than domination. Recovery from narcissistic relationships fundamentally transforms worldview, replacing naive trust with nuanced discernment that distinguishes between genuine connection and manipulation. This perspective shift doesn't create cynicism, but rather balanced realism, acknowledging both human capacity for exploitation and authentic kindness. The healing process develops sophisticated understanding that most relationships exist on spectrum between narcissistic and healthy dynamics, with various behaviors indicating position within this continuum. This knowledge enables establishing appropriate boundaries calibrated to specific relationship contexts, offering protection without isolation. The survivor develops capacity to remain simultaneously open to connection while maintaining appropriate skepticism, creating balanced approach integrating previous experience without allowing it to dominate future relationships. The journey from narcissistic relationship entanglement to psychological freedom requires confronting painful recognition that the connection was fundamentally different than it appeared. This realization challenges core beliefs about relationship experiences, requiring acceptance that perceived reciprocal investment actually represented one-sided exploitation. This truth initially creates cognitive dissonance, seeming incompatible, with memories of apparent affection, proclaimed devotion, and convincing performances of attachment. Resolving this dissonance requires reinterpreting relationship history through informed perspective, recognizing manipulation strategies previously invisible due to emotional involvement. This recalibration process feels temporarily destabilizing, but ultimately provides foundation for authentic healing, replacing comforting illusions with difficult truths that enable genuine recovery rather than superficial coping. The profound transformation following narcissistic relationship recovery creates opportunity for exceptional personal development, precisely because previous beliefs underwent complete reconstruction. When fundamental assumptions about human behavior, trust, and relationship dynamics collapse under reality's weight, the necessary rebuilding process allows creating more sophisticated understanding than previously possible. This represents evolutionary opportunity emerging from trauma, developing psychological infrastructure surpassing what existed before the relationship. While this perspective doesn't minimize suffering experienced, it acknowledges potential, growth emerging from necessary reconstruction. The survivor develops capacity for relationship depth precisely because superficial understanding proved inadequate, creating paradoxical outcome where manipulation ultimately produces wisdom rather than permanent damage. Survivors of narcissistic relationships join specialized community sharing uniquely valuable insight unavailable through conventional experience. This knowledge community offers validation impossible from those without similar history, creating connection based on shared understanding rather than explanation requirement. This specialized knowledge transforms isolation into belonging, with recognition patterns creating immediate understanding, transcending ordinary communication limitations. The survivor finds themselves simultaneously part of two worlds, operating within conventional social contexts while perceiving relationship dynamics invisible to others. This dual awareness creates responsibility for discerning when sharing insights proves helpful versus when acceptance of different perception serves better purpose. This specialized knowledge represents both burden and gift, requiring wisdom regarding its application while providing protection otherwise unavailable. The narcissist ultimately lives trapped within perpetual dissatisfaction, experiencing fleeting pleasure from acquisition without sustained fulfillment from connection. Despite appearances of success through accumulated status symbols, relationships, or achievements, their internal experience features chronic emptiness impervious to external solutions. Their psychological structure prevents genuine intimacy while simultaneously craving validation only authentic connection provides, creating unresolvable paradox at their existence's core. Understanding this fundamental limitation helps survivors recognize that relationship failure resulted from structural impossibility rather than personal inadequacy. The narcissist's momentary recognition of what they lost simply highlights this tragic pattern, briefly glimpsing what remains perpetually unattainable because of their fundamental inability to establish genuine emotional reciprocity. Survivors emerge from narcissistic relationships fundamentally transformed, developing heightened perception, emotional resilience, and interpersonal wisdom, surpassing previous capabilities. This hard-earned knowledge creates responsibility for its application, using awareness to establish healthier relationships, support others experiencing similar circumstances, and participate in broader cultural understanding about manipulation dynamics. While remembering painful experiences remains important for maintaining protective awareness, focusing primarily on moving forward rather than ruminating on past injustice creates optimum recovery trajectory. This forward orientation doesn't minimize previous suffering, but rather prevents narcissistic dynamics from continuing to dominate life experience even after the relationship ends. The ultimate achievement involves integrating valuable knowledge, while reclaiming capacity for joy, trust, and connection with appropriate discernment.